Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. My name is JP, and I'm joined today by Julian Bonici, and these are your 5 stories for today. New proposal bans petting and breeding of wild animals at Malta zoos. Green wardens will patrol Miżieb and Aħrax, finding those who break the law. Relatives of COVID-19 victims now have 24 hours to plan and attend funerals. Naxxar's council's plans for peaceful garden historic mill shut down, and no nominations for Muscat's parliament seat paves way for Dalli co-option.
Okay, so on to our first story. So a new proposal has been put forward to ban petting or breeding of wild animals at Malta zoos. So essentially it was proposed by Animal Rights Minister Anton Refola yesterday.
Yep.
Along the list of proposals include mandatory neutering, mandatory microchipping, a mandatory insurance policy, 24-hour CCTV footage, and a complete prohibition on petting and breeding unless you get an order from the Directorate of Veterinary Regulation. So this is just a public consultation at the moment. They still have to discuss things with stakeholders, so these proposals might actually change. We'll have to see how it's going to develop. What do you think about this proposal? You were there yesterday.
Yeah, I attended the press conference yesterday. I think it's a good step in the right direction. I'm sure a lot of animal activists will be happy to hear this. Obviously, you know, the petting and that kind of caressing of wild animals at Malta zoos is quite a main attraction. So obviously the zoos that are here at the moment will be hit hard by these regulations, but I think it's a necessary step to kind of help regulate the industry more and obviously put the interest and the welfare of the animals first, you know, in this case. So I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what is proposed as law in the coming days. Moving on to our next story, in a similar vein actually, Lovin Malta yesterday interviewed FKNK PRO, and in which he discussed the proposal of a kind of warden system for now this for Aħrax and Miżieb, obviously in light of this controversial deal that was signed last weekend between the FKNK and the government. But one of the things that's going to come out of this is the implementation of a green warden, which basically is a warden patrolling the wooded areas, ensuring that no one is littering, no one is has naked flames, fires when they're camping and whatnot, to ensure the safety and keep the environment clean in these areas. They also will have executive powers, which means that they can issue fines to those who are breaking the law. And during the interview yesterday, the FKNK PRO also claimed that they will be regulating and monitoring hunters as well. So obviously the issue of hunters leaving their cartridges or their shells once they're down on the floor, littering all over the place. And these green wardens will also be able to fine hunters as well. They won't be hunters themselves. These wardens, they'll be chosen by the government, by third parties, to be monitoring the areas. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the proposal seems littered with good intentions, but as we know, enforcement, particularly when it comes to hunting, has been really, really weak over recent years. I mean, just this year we've had one of the worst years on record in terms of illegalities being committed. And while they can't say it's going to be enforced, I'd love to see this in action, in action properly. I think we also can't forget what this debate is really about, not necessarily about hunting illegality, but really about public space. People deserve some land, deserve some space from all the endless construction. Just enforcement, I feel, isn't really a solution to the actual issue itself. On to our next story a bit. I mean, positive news on a tragic story, I suppose, but relatives of COVID-19 victims now have 24 hours to plan and attend funerals. So for those of you who didn't know, ever since COVID-19 hit Malta, there have been really, really strict restrictions on funerals, particularly when it comes to people who have died of COVID-19. So it happens in a rush, sort of you get quite a somber phone call in the morning, you've got 2 hours to bury your loved one, only 5 people can come, and it's quite sad for the grieving process. Now WHO changed their regulations, and Malta has followed suit, so now funerals can happen in churches, which is really good, with COVID-19 regulations obviously in place, like social distancing and whatever, and you actually have 24 hours to settle your affairs on quite a tragic day.
And just to give a brief update on the COVID-19 situation in Malta, there are now a total of 43 deaths following, two similar cases the other day of 67-year-old men that passed away, unfortunately. The country also registered 95 new cases yesterday, as well as 30 new recoveries, but now the country's reached a record high of 768 active COVID-19 cases. Segueing on to our fourth story of the day, Naxxar's council's plans for Peaceful Garden Historic Mill has been shut down by the Lands Authority. So basically, the Naxxar Local Council had proposed to build a large garden around the iconic Naxxar windmill. I'm sure a lot of people know about it in the Naxxar area. This is an 18th century windmill, and their plans were to build up, to restore this windmill and build a nice garden around the windmill so that people of the area could enjoy some green spaces. Unfortunately, the Land Authority shut down their proposal and instead decided to renew the contract to the current tenant, which is a private company, which is currently using the area as a vehicle scrapyard. So nowhere near as nice as what the local council had intended the area to be, a vehicle scrapyard compared to a nice public garden, especially in a place like Naxxar where there isn't, a lot of green spaces. But the Naxxar mayor, Anne-Marie Muscat Fenekadami, spoke on Facebook about how disappointed she was in the decision, and I mean, rightfully so. You can imagine, that this tends to be the case a lot of the time with these kind of green projects being shut down. And now, the residents of the Naxxar are being deprived of another space. Instead, this private company is going to continue, with its vehicle scrapyard. What do you think?
Yeah, and then I guess the authorities wonder why people are so upset over the Miżieb and Aħrax issue. I mean, if it can't be made clear, there are no public spaces, no open green public spaces in Malta's localities, despite the rampant construction everywhere on Malta's roads. I mean, the Lands Authority, funnily enough, gladly gave away Miżieb and Aħrax to the management of hunters, but then introducing a green public space in a locality seemed a bit too far of a stretch for them. If you look around Europe, every developed city around there has green open spaces. They're essential to city living, and let's face it, Malta is one big city. Hopefully the Lands Authority changes its ways and starts providing people with somewhere to go other than a road in a car. On to our last story, I suppose. The race for Joseph Muscat's parliamentary seat actually took quite an interesting turn yesterday. So no candidates submitted their nomination for the casual election. Both Stefan Bontempo and Mark Corson said, they have no intention to run for the seat, opening up the doors for co-option. So co-option, for those of you who don't know, is when the Labour Party is free to pick whoever they want as their new MP, raising questions over who they might choose. So there's actually been a lot of rumours going around that Dalli, the massively popular MEP, could be in the running to make it into Parliament by co-option. Dalli herself is immensely popular. She won the most first count votes in the last MEP election and has proven actually quite successful on the European stage. She's actually not commenting on the issue itself at the moment, but her arrival would present sort of a coup for Prime Minister Robert Abela. I mean, we can't forget over the last 8 months, he's lost some very key figures in the Labour Party. Now, obviously, they went for quite disgraceful reasons, but former Prime Minister Joseph Muscat, former Minister Conrad Mitzi and former Minister Conrad Mitzi either resigned from Parliament or became an independent MP. Dalli's arrival does spell something interesting in terms of cabinet. So I would imagine if Dalli arrives with her immense popularity, she's not going to be just a normal MP. She's going to want to be a minister and the head of a big ministry, no doubt. Who's going to lose their place? Where she's going to go? It's going to be an interesting debate over the next few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, if she does end up, moving as an MP and a member of cabinet, that obviously vacates the seat of MEP. So another interesting development there. Perhaps Cyrus Endro, who was also quite close to getting the seat last year, is touted to be the favourite in taking up a role at MEP. But then again, another area to watch and develop and see where that goes. With that being said, this brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you for joining us and have a day full of lovin'.